frustrates me? The way students in the Philippines are passing math without knowing math. This isn't about me, this is about how the education system failed as soon as it let students pass without a decent grasp of basic competencies. I'm in 10th grade, and I have many classmates who don't know how to do basic operations. They can almost vote, but they don't know long division. How do we let this happen? It's not just math. My aunt pointed out that there are many high school students who can't read properly. We have so many honor students here in the Philippines, yet we are one of the least performing countries in international assessments. How can this be? Here's the thing about math. It builds on itself. What you learn in 7th grade, you'll need in 8th grade. What you learn in 8th grade, you'll need in 9th grade, etc. So why is it that it's the one subject where it's normalized, sometimes even glorified, to be bad at? It's the one subject that you're supposed to have mastered because of how repeated it is. And here's my hot take. I genuinely think performance tasks should be abolished, or at least drastically changed. Controversial, I know. But these tasks are take-home. People cheat on them. And most of the time, they have nothing to do with the actual math competencies. How is it fair that my classmates who fail every quiz can still pass because of ChatGPT? The system itself makes students complacent. A student's goal is to pass, and if they see that they can pass without actually learning, why would they even try? It's so frustrating because this isn't just about grades, it's about competence. The system sets students up for failure in the real world. We must stop acting like this is normal. Hey, I know that if you're watching this, you probably hate math, but we need to discuss something important. Why so many students are struggling, and why it's not just the system's fault. Like I said before, it's normalized to be bad at math, and that's a problem. When students act indifferent about their poor math skills, it spreads. It influences your peers, making it seem like it's okay to not even try. It's a bandwagon fallacy. They think, well, if everyone else is bad at math, then it's okay that I am too, right? But no, that's not true. Math is important, and I think one of the biggest reasons why students don't take it seriously is because they believe that they won't need it in the real world. With Google, AI, calculators, they think, why bother? But whether or not you go into STEM, understanding basic math is essential for managing personal finances, problem solving in everyday life, developing logical and analytical skills. And beyond that, math teaches precision, patience, critical thinking, skills that go beyond just numbers. Also, math is everywhere. Galileo Galilei once said, nature is written in mathematical language. Now, here's something else students don't often realize. Math requires practice. Unlike subjects where you can just read and understand, math demands repetition. It's like learning an instrument or a sport. You need muscle memory. You have to engage with it actively. But many students are not studying math the right way. And something that cuts me deep, when people call me smart just for knowing basic fundamentals, it's not because I'm gifted. It's that the learning targets set by the system aren't even being met. At this point, reaching them makes someone seem like they're intelligent when really they're just doing the bare minimum. And that's not how education should work. Here's the thing, I don't want to be seen as intelligent if it means that my peers get left behind. I want an education system that supports struggling students properly, that helps them, that finds effective ways to help them catch up instead of just forcing them to pass. Yes, at the end of the day, students choose whether or not to absorb this information, but educators also play a role in making learning accessible and engaging. This isn't about blame. It's about both sides working together. If we actually want a productive learning environment, students and teachers need to meet in the middle. Because math isn't just something to get through, it's something we all have to understand. I want you to think about your teachers for a moment. Think about all their years of education, all the training, seminars, board exams, all the qualifications that they had to go through in order to stand before you today. Think about that. Done? Now, I want you to think about yourself, how you have none of that, and how you are only a student who knows nothing better. And no, this is not me lecturing you to respect your teachers whatsoever, although of course you should. This is me telling you what I think is the reason behind why students report to learn less from school lectures than they do from, say for example, an Indian guy teaching on YouTube. It's the language barrier. My problem with some teachers is that they forget that you are only a student who has less qualifications than they do, who knows a lot less than they do. Some teachers tend to talk with terminology or jargon, or in a specific and intricate manner, in a way that you as a student fail to understand. That's why the information doesn't get to your head. In your eyes, the teacher seems to be speaking a whole different language. I tutor kids at school, and they report to me that they learn more from me in a minute than they do from their teacher in an hour. And why is that? I rid my discussions of any technical shenanigans and explain the topic in the simplest way possible. Simply put, I dumb it down. Some teachers just don't do that, and I see this a lot, especially with math. I once had a math coach who simply wrote equations on the board and expected us to understand. In my former school, which was a scholarly institution, the teachers would be, quite frankly, lazy to explain and just assume that we already know. But no, teachers, please. Your student isn't as smart as you are. You have to acknowledge that fact and dumb it down. For our sake and for yours, please find a way to teach us so that the material would fit in our little heads. Teachers, talk to us like we're students, not like we're experts. If you do this, we can finally break the language barrier between us. Performance tasks should be abolished. Hot take, I know, but hear me out. First, some background. DEPA implemented performance tasks in 2012, along with the K-12 program. These tasks take up 40 to 60% of a student's grade, and they are designed to assess students' understanding and application of knowledge in real-world context. Take note, real-world context. But is that actually happening in most schools? Based on what I've seen from 11 years of education, performance tasks often deviate from this objective, and I'm sure that you can relate. I'll give you 2 examples. First, in 8th grade science, we were graded based on whether or not we had complete notes. Not an experiment, not an essay, just notes. We could copy from the book, or copy directly from the teacher's slides, without understanding a thing. Even students who are naturally good at science were penalized for not needing to take notes. It made no sense. Another science task was to make a diagram of lungs. All we had to do was follow simple instructions and glue stuff together. No critical thinking, no comprehension, no science. And that was 40% of our science grade? That's insane. But it gets worse. Other than being straight up irrelevant, another thing that I hate about performance tasks is that they're too easy. Nicole, are you against the idea of students passing with minimal effort? Honestly, yes. Because why else do you think that Filipino students are passing without understanding? Why else do you think that Filipino students forget everything that they learn after exams, if they even learn anything at all? Why else do you think that it's so easy to become an honor student, even without understanding basic fundamentals of math, science, and English? It's because 2 to 3/5 of their brain is something that they can do without being challenged to remember, to comprehend, or to apply the material. And let's not ignore the obvious. Performance tasks are cheatable. Since most are take-home, students can ask someone else to do them, pay for them, or even just copy-paste AI-generated answers. So you're telling me that you're okay with 40% of a student's grade coming from something that they didn't even do? Well, I'm not. Another thing that I hate about performance tasks is the mindset that students have revolved around it. I cannot count the number of times I've heard people say that they won't study for quizzes because, anyway, the performance task will help them pass. The performance task that is too easy, that can be cheated on, and that does not accurately gauge their mastery of the material. I hate the Filipino mindset of, oh, inalam ko sa performance task. I may be the only one bold enough to say it aloud, but students, no. They know what they're doing. They know that these performance tasks are inaccurate, and they love it. They feed off of it. They slack off the rest of their grade and refuse to learn the material because they know for a fact that they will pass anyway, thanks to these performance tasks. Whether you're a student or a teacher watching this, you cannot deny it. This is a system that rewards dishonesty, incompetence, and laziness. So, what can we do? Ideally, we just abolish performance tasks altogether. But realistically, that won't be easy. This system has been around for over a decade. So if I were the Secretary of Education, I'd just change how we design them. Here's how. Performance tasks must be relevant. They must align directly with subject competencies. If a student doesn't understand the topic, they shouldn't be able to complete the task. 2. Time-bound. Like exams, they should be done within a reasonable, fixed period. Ideally, in class. No dragging it over a week for a task that just takes 30 minutes. 3. Proctored. Performance tasks should be done in a monitored classroom setting, not at home. This prevents cheating and ensures students actually understand what they're doing. Now, think about those 3 traits. Doesn't that sound familiar? Yes, it sounds like a periodical test. Maybe that's the point. If a performance test is supposed to assess knowledge just like a periodic test, why not design it in a similar way? We don't need two separate systems when one of them already works fine. Of course, I know how hard it would be to enforce this. Even if Epidemic agrees, it's still the teachers who decide what tasks is time, and there are already so many inconsistencies in how subjects are taught. Asking for uniform performance tasks is a lot harder. So why not just remove them altogether? Without performance tasks, we eliminate cheating, laziness, and the unrealistic pressure of having one task define your grade. Why does so much of a student's future depend on a single overhyped assignment? Why can't grades reflect consistent effort over time, not just one flashy submission? Anyway, thank you for listening to my rant. Comment your thoughts below, and if you agree with me, share this. Let's start a conversation about education in the Philippines desperately needs. Have you heard of the sayings, if you never fail, how can you learn? Mistakes are a part of the learning process. People everywhere, every day, are so quick to say these things, yet our very own education system cannot live by it. Today, I'm going to discuss my take on grade inflation, the process of making a student's grade larger on the report card than it actually is. Now, don't get me wrong. As an honors student, I personally love it so much. I love it when my teacher gives me bonus points for no reason. It makes my parents happy, makes me happy, makes my future college admissions officers happy. Everyone's happy. But you know who's not? The workforce, the economy, the future of our nation. When we give passing grades in English to those who can't read, or passing grades in math to those who can't calculate, and all that sort of stuff, we're only doing a disservice to the students, setting them up for failure in the real world, making them have this illusion that they know what they're doing when really they don't. So yes, on paper, I love it. It feels so nice to have such high grades. But when I look to the future, I can't say the same. Now, if inflating grades is so bad, then why do teachers do it? Well, you have to understand the implication behind a student failing. A student failing the subject means a teacher failed to educate them, or at least that's what they think. Now, and obviously, teachers don't want that. They don't want to lose their job, to have a bad reputation, to have the parents of a child that they failed stomp into their office and angrily demand a reason for failing them. It's simply more convenient to bump up everyone's grades, to let that failing student pass, as opposed to dealing with all the repercussions that follow. But is that what education has been reduced to? Convenience? Are we here to educate, or are we here to waste time, effort, and resources into teaching students without them gaining any knowledge? If we don't correct our youth for their mistakes, how can they learn? If they know that they can pass without learning, why would they try? Are you sure you're still educating? Or are we an enabler of a system that ignores struggling students instead of properly addressing the gaps in their knowledge? To be clear, I'm not mad at the teachers. I'm mad at the system. I understand why teachers feel the need to do this. That is why I am begging on my knees to remove this stigma that surrounds failing grades, so that instead of breeding shame, we breed curiosity, care, empathy, a genuine concern as to why the student failed, and a patience to guide them, as opposed to letting them level up to a place that they're clearly not ready for. Let us let students fail. That's how they learn. Transmutation should be abolished. There, I said it. Even if it wasn't the original intention, it becomes a tool for grade inflation, a process that I already talked about in a previous video, link in the description. It turns 60s into 75s. Mind you, that's a 15-point gap. Why do you have to convert the 60 into 75? Why can't we just make the passing grade 60? And why do you have to change how the grade looks when we already know what it actually is because we're all aware of the transmutation table? Well, some argue that it makes our grades look better internationally. But no, institutions abroad are well aware of our transmutation practices. In fact, this can lead to doubts about our grading integrity. Another thing that's problematic is the unfairness in it. You're telling me that according to this chart, my 99.99 is not equal to 100, but my classmate's 60 is equal to 75? I cannot be compensated by 0.01, but my classmate can be by 15 whole points? The whole argument for why transmutation is done in the first place is for fairness. It's hard to call that fair though. Well, okay, in the name of fairness, let's look at the one and only valid reason I could find that support grade transmutation. Let's say I'm in a scholar school, and my friend is in a regular school. I get 80% as a raw score, and my friend gets 95%. His tests and tests were easy though, and mine were mind-blowingly difficult. Without grade transmutation, he would get a higher grade than I do. But with transmutation, our schools would have different transmutation tables, and we get the same grade. Transmutation levels the playing field and helps show consistency. My counter-argument for this is that, yes, our schools have varying difficulty, but my school is known for its difficulty, and his school is not. When college admissions officers look at our report cards, I'm going to be more forgiving for lower grades than he is, because they see that my school is some prestigious, burdensome school, and his is just another state school. So, with the recognition given to my school, there's no need to try to make the grades represent consistently, and even if there was, it still doesn't excuse its other disadvantages. Now, another excuse that I see that supports transmutation is that it softens the blow of low grades. But if we want to round things off, why not just turn the 79 into 80 and not turning 79 into 86? This reasoning is supporting grade inflation, which I do not support for reasons stated in my previous video. Grade inflation, or the no-fail system, only makes students more complacent about their grades. Once again, I hate when students are overly chill. School is supposed to be important. This is the future of our nation we're talking about. And when we have systems like these that blatantly congratulate students with bare minimum, pat them on the back for low performance, there's no doubt in my mind that we risk raising our school children to be less motivated, less disciplined, and less prepared for the real world. This transmutation stable system and every other system that is used for grade inflation are unfair, dishonest, and inconsistent, only working as an excuse to overlook student struggles instead of properly helping them master the subject. Well, what can we do? Share this video. Speak up. Together, let's change the system. It's for our future. Breaking news! Students are now acting like teachers. You heard that right. Just like teachers, students are now giving grades to other students. Isn't that ironic? The very job of trained educators is now given to children in a system called peer evaluation. That's another thing I want to abolish right there. And in this video, I'm going to tell you why. Look, I understand peer evaluation is often intended to build critical thinking and encourage student involvement. But when it's used to assign actual grades, it opens the door to serious issues. Let's go straight to the point with the most obvious reason. Peer evaluation is biased. Despite providing a rubric, despite reminding students over and over that they should not be biased, the moment you give a student the power to grade another student, they're going to take matters into their own hands. They're going to choose whatever score they want because you gave them that power. Whether it's to bring down people they don't like or to help their friends, once you ask them to provide a number, you're going to make that number as high or as low as they want. And even if it's not on purpose, the human mind is gullible, easily influenced, and always prone to bias. Even if they have good intentions, unconscious bias will be involved. Teachers, you have to understand that students have personal relationships with one another. They could love, like, dislike, or hate each other. They can bribe or make deals with each other. They can be used as tools of complacency or academic sabotage. Scores born out of peer evaluation are unreliable. And that's not to say that when a teacher grades, it's real bias. Of course, there might be, but there's less chances of it happening. The student will be able to, reason out about it, and at least it's a teacher doing it. Let me ask you this. Are you sure that you want a student to have that much power over another student? One score can be the difference between a pass or fail. And if you're going to trust that blindly, keyword blindly, then you're putting your student's grade in grave danger, in the possibility of getting a score that they don't deserve. But okay, that aside, let's say there's no bias, which I stated is impossible, but let's imagine it anyway. What would be bad about peer evaluation? Short answer, the inaccuracy. Long answer, even if students are not influenced by their emotions, they may still have different interpretations about the output of their classmate, the rubric that was given to them, or the meaning of the numbers in the scale. They may simply not have the same view that the teacher does when it comes to how to grade their classmate. What seems like an 8 in the student standard may be a 10 in the teacher's standard. That leads me to another point. Peer evaluation is inconsistent. Just like how the teacher's view can differ from the student's views can differ from each other. One student could grade an output as 5 when another student grades the same output 7. There's just an irregularity and variability between gradings. It would be more consistent and more fair to base all grades off of one standard, the teacher's standard. Another thing bad about peer evaluation is that it's unprofessional. Okay, hear me out with this one. Why are you placing a burden to grade a student on a student? That's a responsibility that should belong to educators, not to the students. I'm sorry, but it's true. I'm not blaming you though, because I understand that this is a system that has been around for a long time. But we have to get rid of this biased, inaccurate, and inconsistent model. It may be convenient, but as mentioned in one of my previous videos, education must not be reduced to convenience. We have to take a stand and give justice to the grading system. In addition, we must embrace the fact that there are numerous alternatives to it. I think that there are other ways to complete the same objectives that peer evaluation aims to do. And I'm going to tell you all about it in my next video. Thank you for watching. If you agree with me, share this, and follow me to be able to see the next video where I present solutions to peer evaluation. Peer evaluation should be abolished. In my previous video, I already explained why, and in this video, I'm going to talk about possible alternatives to peer evaluation and how we can use it without abusing it. If you haven't seen my previous video, check it out before watching this one. First of all, when I say that peer evaluation should be abolished, I mean it as a graded activity. Like the score given to student A by student B is literally added to student A's grade. But when peer evaluation is used as a mere assessment of what areas to work on, a collection of students' opinions, and a way to check if students are cooperating on group work, that's perfectly okay. To put it into perspective, I'm going to walk you through how I would use peer evaluation if I were a teacher. The only scenario where I find peer evaluation to be useful and necessary is in group projects. I get that it's a common, perhaps even expected occurrence to have group members who don't do their part. As someone who's been elected as a group leader all my life for almost every task, I can get the weight of that. But we don't have to let members grade each other and then put in the actual grade. That's unfair and biased and has a lot of practical and ethical issues, as discussed in my previous video. Instead, the way that I would do it is I would let them grade each other, but not put in an actual grade. First, I would hand them a paper with a rubric, let them score each member on a scale of 0 to 10. Next, I would collect all the papers and then huddle up with them in a circle. Then I would look through all the papers of the scores of person A, and then go through them again for the scores of person B, etc., until all members are completed. While doing this, I would ask the person what contributions they made to the group, and ask the people who scored them why they gave them that particular score. Because it's in a group conversation, this encourages open and honest dialogue and ensures that both sides are heard. Both the scorer and the scoree get a chance to justify themselves. I would also ask for evidence for their contributions, such as taking a look at their group project group chat. In addition, this conversation is not just a courtroom trial to persecute those who didn't contribute. Instead, it will be an opportunity for me as a teacher to get insight into how the students went about the project, like how they distributed the tasks, and catered it to each member's skills and talents. Furthermore, the most important part, I will ask them questions regarding the subject material as a way to gauge their understanding of it. The point of group projects is not just to submit something. The main point of it is to learn. With this post-project discussion, I can ask the learners for insights, feedback, recommendations for me, for the subject, and for each other. Because I feel like the system that we have in place now is enforcing this mindset of passing for the sake of passing. Educators must give learners a time to reflect on the output they made in order to both assess their understanding and to see which of them actually contributed to the group work. Of course, this is just my suggestion, and I'm not saying that this oddly specific system I've come up with is the only way to go. However, it's a good system, to the best of my understanding. This system encourages open dialogue, subject mastery, strong work ethic, and honest student-to-student and student-to-teacher relationships. Let's build a system where students learn from their shortcomings, instead of getting outcasted from them, for them. Teenagers' mental health is degrading. 73% of Filipino Gen Zs report to be struggling with mental health issues. Also, Gen Z is 1.4 to 2.3 times more likely to be diagnosed with a mental health condition than other generations. And what's worse is that we take these alarming statistics lightly. When a child says that they're depressed or anxious, the parent simply says, "You have nothing to be depressed or anxious about. You don't pay the bills, taxes, or mortgage. You're being dramatic. It's just a phase." This cycle of dismissal and misunderstanding is something we've seen for generations. It's part of our culture. But it's something that we can change together. So, if the parents of a child refuse to help them, or if the child is, say for example, born into an abusive household, then who can the child run to? Where can they go? Well, they can go to school. There's something I find lacking about the system we have in place. I'm aware that we have guidance counselors, but I think we should have psychiatrists too. Let me explain. There are a lot of things that psychiatrists can do that psychologists cannot, that I find important for school children nowadays. Counselors can listen, psychologists can assess, but only psychiatrists can diagnose. Let me remind you of how important a diagnosis is. It's just the same as having a physical illness. How are you supposed to heal from your disease if you don't even know that you have it, nor what disease it is, nor who can help you with it? Another thing is the medical side. Psychiatrists are doctors. They can prescribe medicine. Of course, while avoiding over-medicalization, we have to set up a system that gives medication to those who need it most. I want that every student gets to walk into the school clinic for whatever health issue they're facing, not just the strictly physical ones. Because at the end of the day, mental health issues are physical too. Think of panic attacks where you can get dizzy and nauseous. Think of depressive episodes where you can get fatigue and insomnia. Many children go through these issues all the time and have nowhere to turn to because, again, there remains a toxic Filipino mindset that mental health is not real, not important, and that negative thoughts are just demons speaking to us. But no, that's not true. And until we can get rid of this notion that mental health is fake, which will take decades and decades, we have to do whatever in our power to protect our youth. Speaking of protection, if we have psychiatrists in our school, they can provide professional support for crisis management. Remember those panic attacks I mentioned earlier? How about suicidal attempts? Tell me, why are these treated differently from, say, a student fainting, when they're both fundamentally the same? They're both medical emergencies. And if you don't see it that way, that's only further evidence about how much work we still have to do to destigmatize mental health and stop it from being so separated in notion from physical health. Mental health is physical health. It's not just in their heads. What kids are going through nowadays is real. Though we may not understand why this depression pandemic is happening, we have to be there to support our school children. Furthermore, having psychiatrists in schools normalizes mental health. It'll destigmatizing it. It'll destigmatize, turning into something that's acceptable to talk about and no longer taboo and mysterious. Now for the counter-arguments. The one and only valid reason I can find against my argument is that adding psychiatrists to schools is expensive. Well, they're doctors. We all know that doctors get paid very well. Where can we get the funds for it? Perhaps we could get schools to partner up with hospitals. Perhaps we could let fresh psychiatry graduates have their residency in school so that it's hitting two birds with one stone. I may not have all the logistics figured out, but one thing is clear. Doing nothing costs far more. Adding psychiatrists to schools is expensive, but so is ignoring students' mental health. Think about the dropouts, the suicides, and the wasted potential. Imagine how much better we can function as a society if access to psychiatric healthcare was just around the corner for every student. If we can find the money for roads, buildings, public events, then why can't we find the money for saving lives? Both the Department of Education and the Department of Health can work hand in hand to reallocate some funds into finding psychiatrists for schools. Then again, at the end of the day, the reason why it's so crucial to have psychiatrists in schools is because most parents won't let their children go to psychiatrists in hospitals. So here's an alternative proposal. We could educate our parents. We could let parents attend government-hosted seminars and workshops about mental health. We could spread information about mental health in social media platforms commonly used by millennials. However, it will take ages to replace a mindset that has been around since forever. So let's do what's more possible now. Let's protect our youth. Let's give importance to mental health because it affects physical health. And let's not wait until it's too late. Let's give students someone to turn to. Let's make school a place of healing, not just learning. The unemployment rate in the Philippines right now is 4.1%. That doesn't seem like much until you realize that means nearly 5 million adults don't have a job. Also, did you know that the rate of teenage pregnancy in the year 2022 was 5.4%? Every year, about 3,000 teenage girls are impregnated, giving the Philippines the second highest rate of teenage pregnancy in Southeast Asia. Oh, and also let's not forget to mention that according to SWS and PIES, only 11% of Filipinos aged 15 to 24 pass a basic civic knowledge quiz. Many could not name key government officials nor explain how laws are made. Now, what do all these problems have in common? Do you know what could have prevented at least some of these instances? Well, I do, and I can name it in one word: education. Alas, we don't have financial literacy, sex education, and political literacy subjects in school, but we should. I want to add life skills into the basic education curriculum, and in this video, I'm going to tell you why. First, let's circle back to why we have school in the first place. Quoting from Nelson Mandela, education is the most powerful weapon which can be used to change the world, end quote. School is important because it's a way for us to have a standard of knowledge set in a controlled environment and facilitated by trained professionals. When a subject is taught in school, it is expected that everyone knows about it. Also, school has the power to harness skills, freshen minds, bring awareness, clarify issues, and so many more. So tell me, if education is so strong, then why does our curriculum exclude subjects such as economics, money, tax, business, politics, livelihood, relationships, first aid, emotional intelligence, among others, when those being taught can have a massive impact on improving them? Why do we claim that school helps prepare us for the real world while knowing that in reality it sheds little to no light on essential topics directly relevant to the real world? Employers often cite a lack of essential life skills among graduates. Skills such as time management, teamwork, adaptability, and communication are highly valuable in the workplace. So what reason do we have to not provide students with further practice of these skills? Another reason is that the economy of our country could be improved significantly if the workers had more financial literacy. Studies have consistently shown that many young adults lack basic financial knowledge, and financial skills into the curriculum would help make students more exposed to situations involving money, enabling them to grow into responsible adults who contribute better to the workforce. Furthermore, in my previous video, I've outlined how much of a problem mental health is for teenagers nowadays. And you know what would really help? If basic psychiatric health was taught in school. If it were taught in school, we would be able to raise awareness of common mental disorders, thereby reducing their stigma, helping students to realize that they themselves have it, and teaching students how to treat and accommodate their fellows who happen to have them. For that, teaching coping mechanisms and broadening emotional intelligence are a must. According to the research from the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, people who have not been taught life skills are more likely to engage in substance abuse and unprotected sex. Students are harming themselves and engaging in risky behaviors because no one ever taught them how to cope with their emotions. Speaking of sex, we should incorporate sex education into the curriculum. With the alarming rate of teenage pregnancies, unprotected sex, statutory rape, sexual abuse, etc., we should be teaching students about boundaries, consent, and practicing safe sex, or better yet, keeping away from sex, not only because it presents health risks, but because it's illegal, where the age of consent is 16. With that, we should also be teaching students about their body. As early as when they reach puberty, we should be teaching students about reproductive health. There are countless women who don't even realize that they have a reproductive disorder until it's too late, simply because there's not enough information surrounding them. Because it's not talked about enough. We have to stop the stigma and realize that these are important issues to discuss. We have to talk about them in school because we need verified and factual information from professionals who study them. As always, it's time for the counter arguments. I read this article from thegrownupschool.com which outlines the most common reasons why life skills aren't taught in school. They boil down to the government not finding a place to input them. Examples of such are regards to funding and resourcing, grades being a priority, and having no professionals to teach these skills, thus the fear of teaching them incorrectly. Therefore, the very first step to solving this problem is to raise awareness about it, not just how important it really is. You must do your part, do your research, and let this message spread far and wide to everyone you know. This could be the start of convincing the government to act on this matter and realize that teaching life skills in school is a priority. With regards to the notion that they should be taught at home, such as, for example, saying that sex is a topic best left to the parents, I'd like to point out my first argument in this video. The reason we teach anything at school is to set a standard of knowledge. It's to make sure that we're all uniform and that we're being taught the same thing and that thing is factually correct. Another rebuttal for this counter argument is, again, something I've already mentioned, which is that school should be a preparation for the real world, not the other way around. If we really want to claim that school prepares children for the real world, then why don't we teach things like taxes or how to purchase property? It's all really hypocritical and only strengthens my point. Anyway, that's it for this video. This video is heavily inspired by persuasive speech that I delivered from my English subject in the 9th grade. If you agree with me, share this. Let's make school a place where we learn relevant things that can actually prepare us for the real world.